So if you're watching the NCAA tournament, you're probably looking at the women's bracket and the men's bracket and asking yourself or telling yourself, bro, the men's bracket's pretty weak. And I have to say I agree with that. So the question we come to is, why is women's basketball more entertaining than, women's collegiate basketball more entertaining than men's collegiate basketball? And I'm going to tell you guys this. It's a couple reasons, right? As I mentioned in another video, over the past, ever since 2010, only three collegiate athletes played longer than their sophomore year. They got drafted in the top five. Out of the past top five picks, dating back to 2010, there's only three athletes that played more than their sophomore year. They only played to their junior year. They played 3 years of basketball before declaring the draft. So, what does that mean? These basketball athletes are not staying in college long. They're playing overseas. They're going to the G League. They're doing something else. So you don't get to follow a player throughout their whole collegiate career. That builds suspense. Only a 1 year dosage of it, and without any really big names this year in men's collegiate basketball, most of the top five picks of college basketball this year are actually looking at the top five NBA draft projectees this year are not coming essentially coming from the men's college basketball. It's kind of dry. And we've seen this over the years where guys are one and done. We talked about one and done athletes, and Bill Calipari talked about it. Hey, one and done athletes is what they do, but how can you groom them within 1 year? Versus women's basketball, collegiate basketball, you get to follow these athletes all 4 years. And why are they staying longer? Hate to say it, you probably make more now. You make more money with the NIL, but you try to stay in college as long as you can, because essentially you're making more money than you would if you played in the WNBA. If you look at how much these WNBA players are making, here are the top 10 contracts and how much they're making in the WNBA. Jackie Young with the Las Vegas Aces, her yearly contract is $252,000. Ariki Ogunbowale, right? She's making $241,000 a year. Jewel Lloyd, $231,000. Dewana Bonner, $224,000. Skylar Diggins, $224,000. Alina Deldane, $224,000. Natasha Howard, $224,000. Alyssa Thomas, $209,000. John Claude Jones, $208,000, and then Kelsey Mitchell, $206,000. Right, so that's how much they're making. The average WNBA salary was $102,000 among 151 athletes. Right. Candace Parker, she's making $100,000 this year. Now, what are these collegiate athletes making? Right. So if you look at some of the top collegiate athletes, their NIL valuation on NIL, on 1OS NIL rankings, Haley Cavender and her sister Hannah Cavender are making relatively $862,000 of NIL deals. All right, Paige Buchers, she's making $754K off NIL deals. Flaw J. Johnson, LSU point guard. She's a freshman. As a freshman, she's making $670,000. All right. Jada Williams, she's making point guard for Arizona. She's making $542,000. She just got signed, right? So she hasn't even played basketball yet. Angel Reese, we know about Angel Reese. She's making $392,000. So within 4 years, you can pretty much make the salary that you would make maybe 3 to 4 years, even 5 years in the WNBA. So you have these athletes who are making more money. They're playing harder. They're staying all 4 years before they graduate, and the game is just more exciting. There's more storylines. You get to see better basketball because they're more polished, right? In women's collegiate basketball, you get to see coaches really develop these players, stick with these players. So women's college basketball over the years, is just because the WNBA is not as lucrative as it is when it comes to college. They see that they stay 4 years. Most of them all stay all 4 years. You very rarely see a WNBA player, declare for the draft. I don't think we ever had an WNBA player declare for a draft early. NBA, it's the men's basketball is one and done. So yes, I do want to see Dawn Staley coach South Carolina. I do want to see how Gino's going to respond next year. I do want to see Angel Reese. I do want to see her play against because she went to College Park, for a year, for 2 years for a year, and then she transferred over. She's from my hometown. Now she's at LSU. Like, I like these storylines. I like what's coming out of women's college basketball. It's exciting to follow. As opposed to the collegiate basketball where it's one and done athletes. And then if you watch some of the guys that stay longer than 3 or 4 years, those guys probably, hate to say it, their chance of making to the NBA is not really there. The way the NBA plays basketball is completely evolved versus the way collegiate basketball is played. Collegiate basketball is a remedial, dumbed down game of basketball, what it is today. The game is completely evolved. And if you're watching collegiate basketball and how they particularly play, it's different. You may see some one-off teams like Memphis, some one-off teams, some small FBS teams and some tough SES teams. You'll see them kind of play, a different style of basketball where it's more like the NBA. But then if you watch, teams like Princeton, San Diego State, Creighton, they have a style that's successful in college basketball because it works. So you see the differences in why I hate to say it's boring sometimes to watch men's college basketball, and I rather watch a women's collegiate basketball game because there's more storylines, there's better basketball, and the coaches I hate to say it, they get an opportunity to coach a little bit better because they have the players longer. It's the reason why. So there's no doubt that the women's Final Four is more exciting than you think of Iowa's offense versus South Carolina's defense. You're thinking of Angel and how Angel Reese and how the LSU team's going to respond. You want these storylines. You like these storylines, and they're exciting to follow. As opposed to whoever's in the Final Four, FAU, Miami, UConn, and San Diego State. Like, who wants to see that? I hate to say it. Who wants to see it? Hey, look, I love men's college basketball, but compared to women's college basketball, it's more exciting. So we'll see what happens of it, but I don't think it's here to change. I think that with the NBA, because it's not as physical as football, where they have to have 3 academic semesters to get drafted or go into the NFL, or be 21, because it's a man's game. NBA, that's not the case. These guys can come in like LeBron James can come in at 18 years old and 19 years old and dominate the league. So, that's the main reason why women's basketball is more exciting than collegiate basketball is more exciting than men's collegiate basketball. Plain and simple.